Well, good morning, good evening, or good night, depending on where you are in the world today. I am really excited to have Laura Ballet back with us today, specifically because this particular episode has been so long in the making, and
Mm.
I'm very grateful that Laura has taken time out of her day and stuck with us through all the ups and downs of the last couple of weeks as we've been prepping for this. So, welcome, Laura. Thank you for joining us.
And thank you, Stephan, for having me. You know, I love supporting and being a part of everything with everything that you guys do. I love it. Thank
Well,
you.
thank you. We really appreciate that. And actually, on that note, something that we are going to start doing in all our videos, and whether you see this on a replay or on somebody else's channel as well, it's the advice still stands. Please make sure, so whether you're watching this on Wellness Lifestyle Conference or on Laura's channel, please be sure to like and subscribe the video. The button's just below, right there.
Mhm.
Hit like and subscribe so that you can stay up to date on new episodes as they come available on the various topics that we both discuss. So, okay, Laura, this, as you and I have been chatting about this over the last couple of weeks, it's going to be slightly different to our more relaxed discussions that we've had in the past. To our audience that has not seen Laura before, Laura is the author of The Science of Empowerment, which is an incredible book all about literally empowering one's self and not just wishy-washy methodologies, but really the science behind how to get there. So in today's deep dive, we're going to be going a little bit more in depth on that with Laura. So for those who have not seen any of the interviews or shows that you've done with us before, Laura, maybe you could give us just a brief history on yourself and what brought you to writing this book.
Thank you. Well, as in life, there's many, right, teaspoons of everything that come into the entire mix. Most importantly, I was inspired by my brother, Chris Brennan. He was a former USA gymnastics coach. And both my brother and I really were raised in a very positive environment. We were not without trials and tribulations, but there was something about the way that we were raised has really lent itself for Christopher and I to be able to recalibrate faster than, let's say, the average person. And because of that, he wrote a lot of the mindset work for our Olympians and the gymnasts that he trained. And so we've just always, our conversations and the way we've lived life. And when we were kind of things hit the wall, we had a unique way of moving through it. So the book really was born out of these conversations I would have all over. If I was traveling to be with family or friends, or we were going over to Europe, and you know how you sit on a plane or a train and you end up meeting a human being that was just meant to be. And
Mm-hmm.
everywhere I went, of course, everyone was like, you need to write a book. Please write a book. The world needs to hear this and know about this. And 5 years ago, I sat down and I started, and I just had an absolute joy writing it. It flowed from some aspect of the universe. And I really wanted to lend the awareness of how brilliant we all really are and that genius state that sits in us. And it gets either erased or it gets covered and buried through the human condition, heartache and hardship and discouragement, and we lack the self confidence, or we don't have the upbringing that really brings comfort to grow. And I wanted to remind the reader, when you are going through this journey with the science of empowerment, that regardless of your present condition, there is something in you that can get you up and move forward from where you are when it's in a negative or less than pleasant state of
Mm.
so that's a little bit of what really, it was just this drive and this passion to create something that I can give to the global community in my own way and offer something that I felt may be of help to people that needed help and guidance.
Okay, so I mean, I've obviously heard this story before, and it still just amazes me that there are still people out there who are able to not just see that there's a need, but really respond to it. So I'd like to say a huge thank you for that, Laura.
Thank you.
But as mentioned, we are going to be asking a few more sort of hardball questions in this deep dive today. And the one that well, I will admit personally, sprung to mind the very first time your name actually came across my screen, and I saw that you were going to be on the Wellness Lifestyle Conference. And I thought to myself, well, how does this differ from, the Pollyanna kind of approach to life where, oh, just think positive things and everything will be okay. And even if you're completely down in the dumps, you just got to focus on the positive. How does this differ from that?
Yes, that's a great question. And I love this question. I was doing an interview a few weeks ago, and the gentleman that I was being interviewed by had finished the book like that morning. And I'm sharing with our audience here. I received one of the most amazing compliments. We all know and remember The Secret, the book, The
Mm,
Secret. And he said, this book supersedes The Secret. And this is the reason why. And then he shared his thoughts and feelings, which relates directly to this question. This is not about visualizing and meditating and just thinking a certain way, and therefore it will appear. For most of us in our life, we understand how important those modalities of self care are.
mm,
We also understand that we cannot visualize and then fill in the blank and it will appear. There is a structure of willingness, of accountability to get to that pathway in order to manifest those things. What the science of empowerment does is the way it was written, it actually creates new neuronal pathways in the brain. So, in this mind brain matrix, so just however you want to think about the design of your interior of your mind, every word, every sentence was formulated to spark awareness, to go into part of that subconscious that we lose connection to, again, because we're so mired down in challenges of life. This is here to remind you that there is work to be done in order to arrive to our highest and best self. This is not a light read to give you an easy answer, but it has the answers for you. You need to be willing to open up that connection to yourself that maybe you have forgotten. Once you are willing, which is one of the principles in the formula that the book is written about, once you tap in, even if it's ever so slightly, I am now willing to own my empowerment. And I am now willing to take accountability for why I have yet to discover what that is. And you begin to read, your brain and your mind and your consciousness start to create this incredible alchemy. And you really become this powered individual because you are reminded how powerful you are. It really is like a life manual. It's not a one and done book. I have readership now that is on the fourth and fifth read of it. Every time you open the book, you will get something different from it after your initial read. And it's also really cool if you're going through something and you ask the universe or just quiet yourself down and just open up a page. And 9 out of 10 times, what you needed to hear to support what you're going through is there. And it's a very different message for every human being that reads it, which is exactly why I took 5 years to write it. This isn't a blanket to cover all issues and challenges. This is a manual to remind you of your genius, your beauty, your power, and that the way that you think about thought will guide you and support you in manifesting a better life than maybe what is presenting as a deep challenge at the moment.
So my next question then would be, well, actually, before I go there, I'd like to just say, I think that that's kind of amazing. The comment that you had from your friend about how
Yeah.
this supersedes the secret, because I've read The Secret, I watched the film, and whilst a lot of the base principles were sound, there
Mhm.
wasn't enough of the how involved.
Mm.
And people really did think that, okay, well, I'll just visualize a parking space and it'll come to me. And it's like, well, it's not quite how it works. There's a lot more that goes on in terms of just universal law, how things actually manifest in life. And I think that that is really important. But coming now to your final statement around living that empowered life,
Mhm.
talk to me a bit about if someone really is sort of down in the doldrums. And I'll use myself as an example. So every year around about this time, I normally hit a depression. Luckily or unluckily, I'm not quite sure, because I was prepping for it this time, and it hit early. It hit sort of in June of this year, completely out of the blue. And it took me 2 weeks using the tools that I had available to kind of pull myself out of it, because I also couldn't quite figure out what was triggering it, what was causing it. Was it diet? Was it just circumstance? What was actually causing the issue? And it took me ages to really dig down and figure out, okay, it's not one thing, it's kind of, 20 or 30 things.
Mhm.
Now, I'm very blessed in that, because of the work I do with various people in different healing modalities, as well as my own studies and whatnot, I not only have the knowledge, I have the support to carry that through. I bring all of that up because, in terms of the science of empowerment, if somebody is going through not just a rough patch, not just sort of, oh, I'm having a down day, but it's sort of, to quote the Friends song, it's just not been your day, your week, your month, or even your year,
Yeah.
right? And I think 2020 was kind of that. It was just no one's year. If somebody's really been going through that and they know that they want to make a change, but they don't know where to start, is the science of empowerment, I won't say good enough, I will say, is it comprehensive enough
Mm.
that somebody who's just not in the frame of mind to even get out of bed and have a shower today, is it something that they can actually look at and go, okay, baby steps, I've got just this next half hour?
Yeah. So again, wonderful question, and so important to what the global community is experiencing now. So yes, 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 and yes to everything. And something you said, I just had a little internal smile when you prefaced the question with saying that every year around a specific time, something happens. But then out of the blue, it came upon me earlier. So even in that sentence and kind of the way you constructed it, really brought to the attention that nothing is ever out of the blue for the most part. I'm not talking about, unforeseen accidents and things, but for the sake of our conversation today, we
Mm,
are an algorithm of patterns, and this begins so early in our life, well before our consciousness and our awareness and our intellect has been developed enough to see what is coming at us and how to recalibrate it. Immediately, we are just, again, we are an outcome of someone else's perception and projection and how they move through the day. So whether it's a grandparent, a parent, an aunt, a foster care system, however our family dynamic is and continues to be, we are a product of that environment. How Think about this, how amazing would it be if every human being, before they brought another human being into the world, did the necessary work to be at their highest and best? We would then raise another human being to be at their highest and best. We are not of that. So when we hit that wall and we are in that deep connection to sadness, depression, whatever that looks like for each individual person, as you said, and we all can relate. some days we just cannot get out of bed and face the world. How does the science of empowerment really restructure or redesign what that can look like for someone? And this is what I can say, and I'm so glad you asked me this question. I don't tell the story too often, but I'm going to start now because it's been asked of me. Several months ago, I met someone, and they two very successful parents. One is in the school system, and one was actually in the greeting card business. And things were going on in the family, and they had a child, um, 20 years old, that was struggling with such depression that it started moving into suicidal thoughts. Long story short, they asked me if I would speak with him, and I did. But all I said to him was, I'm going to send you a book, a copy of the book. I don't want you to think about anything. I just want you to look at the titles to the chapters. And I don't want you to think about this as a chore and another weight on you right now. I want you to just take this as a message from someone that cares, that isn't connected to anything about you, just another human being out in the world that cares. And I don't want you to ask why. I don't want you to think about how can someone care that doesn't know me. I just want you for a moment to go into your heart and just know that I care and be safe with that and don't question it. And I said, look at the chapters, the titles of the chapters. And if something resonates, and I knew it would, all I want you to do is open up. And when you are ready, begin to read. And that is exactly what happened. A chapter, The Fraudulent Ego, chapter 7, hit him. And it took him 2 months to just lay in bed, barely get up for water and a shower. And he started reading it. And now, it's been 6 months, his life is completely just changed. Now, that is not to say that people at that level read the book and you will all of a sudden change. There has got to be proper skilled therapy, or
Mm.
there's got to be proper help, and everyone needs to find what that looks like for them. But I can tell you that this book, again, reminds you that where we are and why we are there is not because of who we are. It is just a result of who we have become. That doesn't mean you have to stay there. I hope that makes sense. So when we are feeling down and weighted by the challenge that is presenting itself, I just want to remind the global family, it is temporary, and you have everything that you need to move out of that. I don't mean in the snap of a finger, but you can get up and take a shower. You can feed your body with some food. You can read a little bit, or you can put some sun on your face. You have what it takes to just gently begin advancing from that position. This particular book will feed that part of questioning how.
I don't normally leave such a long silence, but I'm just trying to actually
Yeah,
process everything that was just said, because
I
that
know.
was very deep. And I was literally thinking about today. I went to the grocery store just to get some groceries and whatnot. And as I mentioned to you beforehand, I just got hit over the space of the last 2 weeks with a bunch of different things happening,
Mm.
from losing a bunch of clients to my father being rushed into hospital and having to have a major operation. And I literally got to the grocery store and I saw a bench.
Mm.
And the thought that went through my head was, I just want to sit down and never get up again.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
because it sometimes just feels like it's too much. So when you were talking about that weightedness,
yeah,
that's very real, especially for people who are going through depression.
yeah.
So that is really, really great. But I love what you're then also talking about, just recognizing that it doesn't have to be a huge, snap your fingers and everything's going to be great.
Yeah.
It can be just a small thing. Okay, I'm not okay to get out of bed today, but you know what? I can just open the curtains and let some sun on my skin.
Yeah.
It's a
Yes.
step in the right direction.
Get a little fresh air, or just brush your teeth, put a brush in your hair, put a clean t-shirt on. It Very small steps. When we are brought to that level, which, if we're going to look, let's say, on a scale of 1 to 10, and a negative or positive, we'll just use these words at the moment. This
Hmm.
is a very negative feeling, a negative experience that we're going through. And I'm going to give a shout out to the great Dr. Joe Dispenza. You need to think greater than you feel. Excuse me. You need to allow some aspect of your mind to go to a place that is away from where you are at that moment. Get creative, even in that depression or that negative environment. We've all heard of incredible stories of people that have been in a position that we just don't understand how they came up and out of it. There's just no way that that person survived that experience, and yet they did. And that is part of what I really worked on in the book. It's this constant reiteration that no matter what it is, you can neutralize it, and you can begin to build away from the negative experience.
Mm.
And again, the compassion, it could take you and fill in that blank. There is no rush and pressure. Sitting on that bench and having that thought of, I just want to sit and stay here forever. So if I was working with you and in practice, we would say, sitting on that bench for a moment to just let my body rest and have a reprieve. And if it's 5 minutes or 20, it's okay. I will go into the grocery store in a moment, whatever that looks like for you. That allows the mind to understand that we have the ability to get up and move forward. Maybe not right at this moment, but I have it. And that is something that you will start to garner while you're reading the book. There's a wisdom and an insight. It isn't me telling you, it is me reminding you. It's this beautiful synergy and alchemy of consciousness really relating to itself. It just happens to be in a book from another human being that wrote it, but it's the humanness of one another in that. And then you take it with you, which is on the cover of the book: negative, positive, neutral. Which energy are you? It reminds you, even when you have that thought, I want to sit, and don't ever get up, because sometimes we freeze in the experience. That neutrality is placed in the writing of the book to remind you, I cannot go from negative to positive. There is no way right now, but I can neutralize the negative effect of what I'm experiencing right now.
Oh, that is profound.
Yeah.
That is really profound, because I think that's actually the key. Is so often when you're trapped in, and I use the word trapped,
Mhm.
but when you feel like you're trapped in depression and you feel like there's no way out, people say, well, just snap out of it, or you've just got to do something good for yourself, or whatever the case may be. And more often than not, you literally just cannot go from that negative to that positive, as you say.
Yeah.
It's not possible. But to recognize that, okay, well, you can neutralize it,
Yeah.
that seems like a much smaller, much more attainable step in the right direction.
And again, neutralizing that experience means just brush your teeth today, put a clean shirt on, or take a shower and let the water feel the sensation of self-care. Even if you're struggling, that's something you can do. Make a cup of tea, or these sound so simple, but yet they are profound when we are experiencing that degree. Now, again, a side note, if there really is true depression, absolutely go get proper help. We are talking, you know, again, in the framework of not such a deep depression that you need medication or you need very, very specific therapies. This is, say, for someone, as you so beautifully shared, that you do have a skill set, that you are well read, that you do have tools to help. But we all can always use, right, new knowledge and extra power tools to help, because we're all shifting and we have really come out of something that has even taken the strongest of us and is really throwing many of us for a loop. So when people have a pattern and an ongoing experience with depression, it really has been more challenging than usual.
Mm.
So to back up what you said, this isn't just about, take a shower and get some pretty clothes on and go about your day, or read a book and life will be perfect. This is about allowing the science of empowerment to become a skill and a tool. And really something I want to share real quickly is try to find that part of you that is a creator, that is a builder, that is a human being here to evolve. And even in the state or the experience of dysfunction or depression or negativity, go back in and sit on that bench or lay out on the grass, or lay in your bed, and let that part of your mind move a little bit away from the pattern of that depression to what it would look like as a creator coming out of it. And let your mind be playful. And again, use the titles of the book, write them down, and have a thought next to what that, like, individuality, self-advanced thinker, fraudulent ego. Use maybe the experience of depression to become a creator away from it. And that might actually help you help someone else down the road.
Oh, beautiful. That is, and I think that's the goal for most people is,
Yeah.
when they do come out of a bad space, you then see somebody else who's maybe going through something similar, and you want to be there to help and assist and
Yeah.
lift them out from that space of negativity.
Yeah.
I'd like to shift the conversation ever so slightly, though, Laura, just to ask you a few more questions about the book, because we've been focusing sort of on the negativity of the world right now, and just the space that a lot of people are in. But there was a hint of something there that I kind of picked up on that I thought, well, I'd love to ask you a bit more about this. Because you were saying things like, realizing that just brushing your teeth or having a nice shower is self-care. Making yourself a cup of tea is just, it's such a beautiful expression of love to oneself. And that got me to thinking that, when you're not in a depressive state, when you're not going through that, we do all those things,
Right.
and we never actually take a moment to be grateful, or to, kind of say thank you and I love you to ourselves. I'm going to make this cup of tea for me because I love me. With the science of empowerment, do you go a bit more in depth into the gratitude side of things?
So, yes and no. There's a little bit of a flip here. I don't work the gratitude aspect of life to the extent that you would think. But yes, the entire book is just a threading of gratitude, because we are so blessed. Even in the worst environment, there are blessings when you look at the humanity of where we are, what we are capable of doing. And when you were talking real quick, the self-care, there's a difference with, right, the ego thinking of what self-care is, and the consciousness or the soul or the spirit or the humanness. So for people that maybe are new to spirituality or new to consciousness awareness or new to a religion, this is about the humanness of who we are. Gratitude really does change the rhythm and the current of the ions and the atoms in the body within every cell. And for those of you who are thinking, I don't understand that, there's no way, just take a moment somewhere in your life and Google the science behind cellular makeup or epigenetics. Take a moment to become a master of a bit of new knowledge, because when you fundamentally understand that thought controls and triggers or switches on cellular traveling in the body, you really want to take care of yourself.
Mm.
You want to become an accountable, self actualized person so that, again, you don't spend this lifetime in a state of depression or handling patterns with other patterns. You want to find the beauty in the ability to think yourself into, and then whatever that looks like. So, for instance, I am amazed that we are floating in the middle of the galaxies every day. I do what I call gratitude work at night. It could be a 1 minute or a 30-minute prayer. It doesn't matter. It's my way of connecting to the global community, because the way I think affects you. Every word
Hmm.
we're saying right now, right? It has this current, our voices, our tonality, our expression, the energy floats through the entire globe. And we're just this beautiful, amazing family. And so many of us don't have gratitude for that. Some of that is based on because we've lost that connection to ourself, which kind of brings us all together. So, yes, don't take for granted the days or the years that we are feeling better. Remember what that is. Take a little notebook or find something that matters to you and place it somewhere, a gratitude rock. And just so everybody knows, I have these all around. I find them when I'm walking the beach or if I'm hiking, and I open up and I'll ask the universe, give me something solid, something to hold on to. And here is this beautiful rock right here. And I'll hold on to it and I'll remember I am a part of the earth. I'm a part of what made this, has made me. And when I hit a wall, I hit a challenge, I have things all around me that remind me I am a part of something bigger than this depression or this sadness or this loss. I am also a part of happiness, gratitude, building, creation. And that's where you find that neutrality again. So when you do have something that's hurting you, remember the beauty and the goodness also, because that energy will come into the experience of what is challenging you right now. So let's say there's an illness and we're really being weighted within that experience. Maybe talk to yourself or that person that's going through it. Remember the holidays, the birthdays, when you were kids, when you took a trip, or whatever it is. Bring in that laughter and that memory of the kindness and the connection and the goodness also, while we're moving through some of the challenges. Infuse the gratitude in with the challenge, which neutralizes the negative aspect of the challenge.
I think you've just blown my mind.
I didn't blow your mind, right? We expanded it.
We expand. There we go. We
Yes.
expanded it. No, because this is just, I think, exactly what I needed to hear as well today. So this is really, really great for me. Um, as mentioned earlier, this is not going out to the audience. I've been going through quite a bit over the last couple of weeks, and I was just blessed enough that Laura said that she's already sent me a copy of her book. So I'm going to be definitely delving in just to see where I can neutralize my negativity and step into my positivity and really fully empower myself again. Because it's one thing, I think, to know that certain things are possible. And so often we get head knowledge, right? But it's a completely different thing to actually practice it and then see the results. And I think that's where your book really stands out from the rest.
So if I may very quickly, I wanted to share something. Before we went on, I just asked the universe for a paragraph. So it's coming in deep into the book. With that stated, one must be willing to take that first step into the direction of empowered individuality. Willingness is, in its definition, ready to do something without being forced. In order to achieve your goals and bring to fruition your creations, you must first be in agreement to do what it will take for positive change to be established. It is one thing to read about inspiration, motivation, and new educational formulas, yet it is another matter to actualize new knowledge into position. Application, as purposeful as this information is, can test your determination. Remember, you have what it takes. It's just a matter of thinking. Be determined to become neutral, to move into positive experiences. Even in the midst of challenging, again, sad or debilitating or depressing or just hardships, there is a part of you that knows how to navigate that differently than you think right at the moment. It is in you.
Now, there's something that struck me as you were reading that, and it was such a beautiful statement. And sorry, I cross my arms not when not when I'm being defensive, but more when I'm really intent on something.
Yes, me too.
Um,
That's why I'm sitting like this.
right. So, and this might not be. I hope it's not taken as a criticism. It's more just a. It's actually more of a question more than anything else. It strikes me that this book is less about sort of helping people get out of negativity, but really about empowering people to the point where they become self-actualized human beings.
Yeah.
Now, to me, that poses a problem
Mhm.
on a few fronts. The first is, and I've had this debate with various of my friends and colleagues and all the rest of it, that I think most humans, most people just don't want to be empowered because it's an incredible amount of responsibility that they then have to take on. Um, and then I suppose that then goes into more of a question, which is when somebody becomes self-actualized, and this was a question that I asked myself when I started on my own journey, and I think you and I may have broached the subject slightly in the past. When I first started on my journey, I went through a very real crisis of self because I didn't know who I was going to become. And I was very scared that when I became that person, I would be less attractive to my friends, my family, and all the rest of it. And in fact, a romantic interest recently said to me that one of the reasons we never ended up together was because she felt that I no longer needed anyone
Mm.
because I was, from her perspective, a complete being.
Yeah.
I suppose not really a question, but more of a what would you say to all of that to people? Actually, there's the question. What would you say to people who have maybe started on their journey? They've now reached a point where, okay, they know that there is a next step to be had, and it's empowering. It's very empowering, but they're scared to take that step. What would you say to those people?
Yes, and this is amazing. I'm actually, my 17-year-old daughter and I are having this just unbelievable experience right now because she has gone through something and she is on a spiritual path now. And we talked about this exact thing at such a young age, not moving on the current of social media, not being the popular, not fitting into the norm. How do you move in this direction or on this pathway that can and at times will be isolating? Because self awareness, will dissolve connections that no longer serve that path to your highest and best. All I can say is, do not let fear of who you will become the pattern of staying who you are. That is all I can offer you, to shortchange yourself, to stagnate your existence because you are afraid of how you will be, is something that we would have to have some sessions on. And we would learn, and to tell readership in general, if you are having a sense of, I am afraid to be or to become, I'll lose my spouse, I'll lose my friendships, that is an indication that the path, if this is a positive, loving path for self, your expansion will bring you such acceptance and love and friendships like you've never imagined. Now, you may not have a lot of it, but the quality of what you will have will be amazing. And be mindful and observant when someone shows a resistance to your growth. That is a reflection of you now needing to move through that resistance, and either ask that person if they'd like to join in on that journey, or be prepared to have to sometimes let people and experiences go for your betterment. And certainly, please do not be in fear of that. It is an absolute declaration of self-love and realization of the power that resides in you to move through that resistance.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Laura. I really appreciate it, especially that last bit. As we start to wrap up, I'd maybe like to share just one observation from my side as well when it comes to being self-empowered. And that is, if there is any fear there or anything that's causing you to second guess or go, maybe this path isn't for me, as you say, on a positive, not a self-destructive one, the question that I would often pose is, do you think that you could possibly shine a light out into the world more effectively if you were a fully empowered person? And of course, the answer is always yes. And then, of course, it's, well, if that's the case, why would you want to deny all of humanity those gifts?
Yeah, and that's so beautifully stated. And, sometimes we do need to stand alone, and it has its own journey, again, in that space. But trust that there is some aspect of yourself that knows it has a task at hand. We're here for a very short time. It really is about fully living to your highest and best, and really not sacrificing your evolution to stay in connection to someone else's resistance.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Laura.
You're
And
welcome.
thank you for your time again today. Really appreciate
It
it.
is such an honor and a pleasure. I love being with you. I am so excited to create trust and continuity and guidance and support to everyone that we can, whose lives we can touch upon, and really expand
Absolutely.
all of this beautiful information and knowledge. And I'm excited. So thank you.
It's my absolute pleasure. And further on that, though, to our audience listening or catching the replay, whether you're catching this on Facebook or LinkedIn or on Laura's YouTube channel, please, again, like and subscribe. But above and beyond that, please also comment. We'd love to hear any questions that you may have about the book, about the science of empowerment, about working with Laura directly. Please do leave your comments in the comment section, and we'll be sure to try and answer as many of those as possible in our next session. I'm going to be doing my own personal deep dive in the book.
Yeah.
And in next week's episodes, I'll be sharing some of my insights and asking Laura just questions about anything that comes up for me. So definitely looking forward to that for sure.
I'm excited for you to read.
Yeah, no, it's going to be, I can just tell already, well, not already because I've known you for quite some time now, but I can just see that this is going to be phenomenal just in my personal growth, and also just for those who are listening as well. So thank you again.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
So to everybody listening here today, thank you so much for spending your time with us. We really appreciate it. Until next week, we have been Laura and Stephan.
Bye.
Cheers, everyone. Bye.